Thanks for being here today. I want to talk with you about this direct file pilot program. I know you've talked to some others about it today. A couple things, because there's been a lot of controversy surrounding the IRS is starting up this direct filing portal that could replace successful private sector options that are currently available to taxpayers around the country. Unlike the current free file process, which partners with the private sector, this would be solely handled by the Internal Revenue Service, make the IRS both the tax collector as well as the tax preparer. The so-called Inflation Reduction Act did provide $15 million for the IRS to study the feasibility of a government-run direct file system, but it didn't provide statutory authority to create and operate a new multi-million-dollar direct file program. So to me, in a classic big file fashion, the IRS spent $130 million on a direct file program, and only 55,000 people, as of at least a couple of weeks ago, used the program. So the IRS spent over $2,000 per taxpayer. And when you compare that to the private sector free file options, serving roughly 30 million taxpayers, it costs the taxpayers and the government nothing. So 18 state treasurers, including my Wyoming State Treasurer, Kurt Meyer, sent a letter asking you to terminate the program. They called this a solution in search of a problem. The Treasury Inspector General for Tax Administration has also raised some concerns. Last week, the Government Accountability Office released a report listing out problems with this new IRS program. So do you think the IRS can do a better job than the private sector at helping taxpayers?
I think what we're trying to do, Senator, is provide an option for taxpayers. It's not supposed to be better or worse. It's supposed to give taxpayers options. I also would offer that the pilot is not done. There have been no cost estimates. You referenced a cost estimate in your question that I'm unfamiliar with. I don't think it's going to end up being an accurate cost estimate. There are way more taxpayers that have filed direct file in the past few days, so the numbers are very different than you have in front of you. But I will say this, that we haven't made a decision on the future of the program. That after the pilot is done, and we still have Massachusetts filing through April 17th, and they're one of our pilot states, we will report publicly on the results. I'll be able to provide a final cost number, a final number of taxpayers, and it'll give opportunities like your state treasurer to react to the data and provide us feedback, and we look forward to that feedback.
Good. Yeah, and I'll see the state treasurer this weekend at home in Wyoming, and he's a big private sector guy, as am I, and the question is, does the private sector have the same, what I would consider maybe a conflict of interest that the IRS has, if the IRS is the tax collector, the tax auditor, the tax enforcer, and now the tax preparer? Judge, jury, and Lord High Executioner.
My answer to that is twofold. One, I don't consider us the preparer. We provide the platform, the taxpayer inputs the information and makes the final sign-off. Second, it's an option. If the taxpayer feels like this is too much IRS for them, they can use any other option that's available for them, including using the free solutions that are offered by the software company. I encourage them to do it. They're very good products.
Can I ask you what safeguard have you put in the IRS in place to protect taxpayers from either conflicts of interest as well as any additional information the IRS will now have relating to taxpayers?
It's the same as I just mentioned. First of all, it's your option. We try to be as transparent as we can about what the parameters of direct file are and what they aren't. And we make it very clear that there are other ways to file your taxes. You do not have to file with direct file. We have allowed taxpayers to make the final call. They hit submit. They review the form. They make the final decisions on what they submit. And once they submit it, their data goes into the same pool of data as any other tax file coming in. So it has the equal protection in terms of data security. There's no real change in your status as a taxpayer once you hit submit on direct file versus hit submit on any other solution.
So when you were last year, I voiced my concerns about funding priorities. The so-called Inflation Reduction Act allowed roughly $80 billion to the Internal Revenue Service. $45 billion went for enforcement compared to only $3 billion in taxpayer services. And we talked about that in my office and talked about it in the hearing. The recent budget request, the IRS asked for another $104 billion in mandatory spending. Of that, $59 billion for enforcement. This would be on top of almost $5.5 billion provided for enforcement annually through regular appropriations. Are small business owners and hardworking taxpayers really going to be protected from some of the burdensome onslaught of audits if you spend more than $100 billion on auditors and enforcement agents in the next 10 years.
Those are my marching orders, and I'm going to, as long as I'm commissioner.
Not from anybody on my side of the aisle. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My time's expired.